On a cold night in late November 1988, a 17-year-old Japanese schoolgirl vanished on her way home from work. At first, it seemed like a disappearance, a runaway perhaps, as police often assumed at the time. But what happened to Junko Furuta would soon shake Japan to its core and leave scars on an entire generation. Her story is not just about a crime. It is about systemic failure of the police, of the courts, and of a society forced to confront the darkest possibilities of human cruelty. This is the case of Junko Furuta, the concrete-encased high school girl murder, one of the most infamous crimes in Japan's post-war history. Junko Furuta was born on January 18, 1971, in Misato, Saitama Prefecture. She lived with her parents and two brothers, an older and a younger. By all accounts, Junko was bright, cheerful, and diligent. At Yashiominami High School, she maintained strong grades and rarely missed classes. Friends described her as warm-hearted and ambitious. Teachers admired her dedication. She worked part-time at a plastic molding factory, saving for a graduation trip. She had already accepted a job at an electronics store, ready to step into adult life. And like many teenage girls of the late 1980s, she dreamed of becoming an idol singer. To those who knew her, Junko embodied innocence and possibility. But in November 1988, her path would cross with a group of young men whose choices would destroy her future. The main perpetrators were four teenagers: Hiroshi Miyano, age 18, who acted as the ringleader; Joe Ogura, 17; Shinji Minato, 16; Yasushi Watanabe, 17. All had dropped out of school months earlier and drifted into crime. They associated with the Chinpura low-level Yakuza and were already committing thefts, assaults, and sexual violence. Court documents later referred to them simply as A, B, C, and D, but tabloids revealed their names, arguing the severity of their actions erased any right to anonymity. The group used Minato's home in Adachi, Tokyo, as their base. His parents, frightened of their own son, allowed them to operate unchecked. This was the environment into which Junko was taken. On the night of November 25, 1988, Junko was cycling home from her part-time job. Miyano and Minato were roaming nearby on their motorbikes, searching for a woman to rob and assault. Minato kicked Junko off her bicycle. Miyano then pretended to rescue her, offering to walk her home. But once he had her trust, he threatened her, claiming ties to the Yakuza. That night, Miyano raped Junko in a hotel room, then phoned his friends to brag. Soon after, the group agreed she would not be allowed to leave. In the early hours of November 26th, Junko was delivered to Minato's family home. There, the group told her she would be killed if she tried to escape or if she endangered their families. What followed was 40 days of captivity. At first, the group forced Junko to phone her parents, telling them she had run away but was safe with friends. It worked. Police treated her case as a runaway, and investigations slowed. When Minato's parents noticed Junko, the boys insisted she was their son's girlfriend. The parents did not intervene. Fear kept them silent. As days passed, the violence escalated. Junko was subjected to relentless abuse. Her body weakened. By late December, she was malnourished and disfigured from repeated assaults. At times, she reportedly begged her captors to end her life, a tragic reflection of the suffering she endured. On January 4, 1989, after losing money in a gambling session, Miyano turned his anger toward Junko. The assault that night lasted hours. By the next morning, Junko Furuta was dead. The group panicked. They wrapped her body in blankets, stuffed it into a travel bag, and placed it inside a steel drum filled with concrete. On January 5th, they abandoned the drum in a vacant lot in Tokyo's Koto ward. For weeks, her family still held hope. But Junko would never return home. In early 1989, Miyano and Ogura were arrested for a different crime: the gang rape of another woman. During interrogation, Miyano believed Ogura had already confessed about Junko. Fearing exposure, he blurted out details of the murder. Police were stunned. They hadn't even connected him to her disappearance. Following Miyano's directions, Investigators located the steel drum on March 29, 1989. Inside was concrete. Within it, the remains of Junko Furuta. She was identified through fingerprints. The case instantly captured national attention. The brutality, the length of her captivity, and the youth of both victim and perpetrators horrified the public. In July 1990, the Tokyo District Court convicted all 4 main perpetrators of abduction, assault, confinement, and murder. Hiroshi Miyano received 20 years in prison, the maximum juvenile sentence at the time. Joe Ogura was sentenced to 5 to 10 years. Shinji Minato to 5 to 9 years. Yasushi Watanabe to 5 to 7 years. 2 others, who participated in earlier assaults but not the murder, were sentenced to juvenile detention. The sentences sparked outrage. Many believed justice had not been served. Letters poured in to police, prosecutors, and courts, demanding harsher punishment. But under Japan's legal system, the death penalty is rarely applied when only one victim is involved. Judges pointed to precedent. A similar case in Nagoya had resulted in life sentences, but with multiple victims. Still, the public remained furious. To many, these young men had taken Junko's life in the most horrifying way possible. Yet they would walk free within a decade or two. What became of the perpetrators after release only deepened public anger. Hiroshi Miyano was freed in 2009. He later faced arrest for fraud and scams. Reports suggest he continued boasting about underworld ties. Joe Ogura, after serving his time, lived a turbulent life. He was arrested again in 2004 for assault and kidnapping. In 2022, he died at age 51 under strange circumstances. Shinji Minato was arrested again in 2018 for attempted murder after attacking a man during a dispute. Yasushi Watanabe lived quietly after release but later developed a degenerative disease and died in 2021 at age 49. For Junko's family, none of this could undo their loss. Junko's funeral was held in April 1989. Her classmates delivered a heartfelt eulogy, remembering her as cheerful and full of dreams. Her high school principal presented her diploma to her parents, ensuring she graduated with her class. Her intended employer gave her family the uniform she would have worn in her job. It was placed in her casket. The words of her classmates still resonate. "We will absolutely not let Jun-chan's death be in vain. As we step into adulthood, we'll strive for a world where such heinous crimes no longer exist." The Junko Furuta case remains one of the darkest chapters in Japan's criminal history. It exposed flaws in how juvenile offenders were treated and sparked ongoing debate about whether anonymity and leniency are appropriate in such extreme cases. For many, the memory of Junko is not defined by the crime itself, but by the bright, kind, and ambitious girl whose life was stolen. Her story is often cited in documentaries, books, and discussions about criminal justice reform in Japan. And her name has become a symbol, a reminder that beneath every headline is a real person with a family, a future, and a life that mattered. The murder of Junko Furuta is a story of innocence destroyed, justice debated, and a society forced to face unimaginable cruelty. It raises difficult questions. Can juveniles who commit such acts ever be rehabilitated? Should age shield someone from the full weight of justice? And, perhaps most hauntingly, how do we honor the memory of a victim whose suffering defies comprehension? Junko Furuta's story continues to echo across generations. It is a story that demands we remember her not as a victim, but as a person whose dreams were stolen, whose life was precious, and whose name should never be forgotten.